Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the undergraduate student funding webinar at the University of Derby. My name's Rob Fowler. I'm Senior Student Money Advisor in Student Services. And this evening we'll be having a look at undergraduate student funding. We'll have a look at what's available, how you apply, when you apply. We'll have a look at how you receive the funding. We'll have a look at repayments, and then we'll be able to take any questions at the end of the presentation. So looking forward to doing that for you this evening. And if I can have the first slide, please, Charlotte. Okay, so just a little bit of an introduction as background to the University of Derby. So just a few headlines for you. So we're top 5 for employability. We're top 20 in England and Wales for social inclusion. Top 5 for course quality, top 15 UK university. 96% of graduates are in work or in further study. And overall, we are a top 25 university for student satisfaction. And next slide. Okay, so just again, a little bit of information just as an introduction before we jump into the student funding. So just as general rule, on average, individuals who attend university will earn substantially more over their lifetimes compared to people who do not go to university. By age 31, graduates in the East Midlands will earn 37% more than non-graduates from the same region. And graduate skills are estimated to have an economic impact of £95 billion nationwide, and as much as £7 billion just in the East Midlands area alone. So a little bit of information for you. And next slide, please. So funding and money and university. So the two main costs each year will be your tuition fees and your living costs. Tuition fees, that's the amount of money you need to pay the university to be on the course that you're studying. So that's what pays for the course itself. And then everything else comes under the header of living costs. So living costs essentially means everything that isn't the tuition fee. So living costs can be accommodation, accommodation and bills. So accommodation can be university halls, it can be private rented accommodation. You may be living at home and commuting to university. So any accommodation costs that relate to you, even if you're living in the parental home. So if you're paying any board and lodge, anything that comes under accommodation and bills, so utility bills. Food as well is a quite an important living cost. Travel, clothes, books and equipment, so study equipment, anything you need, stationery, anything you need to pay for whilst you're studying at university. Just as an idea of average costs, accommodation in university halls starts at around £115. It does go up, it can increase to around 168, I think, is for some of the premium rooms, which are the premium en suites. So it depends what you want. There's affordable accommodation to suit most budgets. In university halls, again, private rented accommodation will be whatever you're paying in rent there. And again, if you're living at home, you'll have maybe accommodation costs there as well. As an average, we'd say, weekly food shop anywhere from £30 to £50 a week just for your basic food. What you spend on food is very specific to you, really, but as a general rule, just for a weekly shop of basic food, the stuff that you need to eat rather than the stuff that you want to eat, so you're looking at £30 to £50 per week. There are laptop loans available from the university library if you don't immediately have a laptop. The student gym membership from £15 a month. You can get some hot food on campus starting at around £2.50. Derby Theatre tickets there if you want to go to the theatre, around £5 for students, and again at the Quad at the cinema in town around £8.50, something like that as a general idea. Again, your living costs will be specific and personal to you, but as a general idea, that's what you should be looking at. And next slide, please. So support available, and we'll have a look at these individually in detail as we go through. So there's the tuition fee loan, which is the loan that pays the tuition fee. There's the maintenance loan, which is the living cost loan. If you're doing an allied health course, so that could be nursing, occupational therapy, diagnostic radiography, and I think it extends now to midwifery and physiotherapy, you can get additional support from the NHS Learning Support Fund. And also university bursary is something that we'll have a look at as well. And as a wider national, bursaries and scholarships. All universities have bursaries and scholarships, but it's important that you know what to look for when you're looking at those. Next slide, please. Okay, so starting with the tuition fees. So like I said, the tuition fee is the amount of money you pay to the university to be on the course that you're on. And you can take out a tuition fee loan. The fees from September 2025 will be £9,535. They just increased slightly from 9,250 after many years sticking there, but 9,535 is the tuition fee from September, and the loan is for 9,535. So the government will always lend you the maximum amount of, they will always lend you enough to cover the tuition fee. So if the fees are 9,535, the loan will also be 9,535. If you take up the loan, it just means that you don't have to pay the fees up front. We'll have a look at repayments at the end of the presentation, so you'll see what happens when it comes to paying the money back. But it just means that when you enroll in September, if you've taken out the loan, it just means that your fees are paid at the point of entry, so you don't have to find the money to come to university. So it's not a barrier to arrive at university having that tuition fee loan there, or having the tuition fee there, because you can take out the loan. It's non-income assessed. There's very few elements that are non-income assessed, but the tuition fee loan is that. So there's no assessment of household income. So regardless of household income, everyone can have that tuition fee loan of 9,535. So it doesn't matter whether it's it's a low household income, doesn't matter if it's a very high household income, that loan is still available to all students. Again, it's important to say that you don't have to apply for a tuition fee loan, just as you don't have to apply for any student funding if you don't want to. But if you want to, it's there to apply for, but just be mindful that if you're not applying for the tuition fee loan, then you will have to pay your tuition fees to the university on an annual basis yourself. So just bear that in mind. Next slide, please. The maintenance loan, which is the loan for living costs. There's a few figures that I'll be throwing at you in the next couple of minutes for this one. There's two bands essentially available to students. So there's the living at home rate and there is the living away from home rate. There is a third rate, which is for students that are studying in central London, and that's a slightly higher maintenance loan based on the higher cost of living in the central London area. But what we will narrow down to for this evening is just the two main bands, which are living away from parental home and living at home. So they're your two bands. The maximum for living at home, I'll start from living away from home. The maximum from living away from home for next year is £10,554. The maximum if you're living at home and commuting to university is £8,877. So even if you are living at home and you've got, little or no accommodation costs, you can still get a loan of up to 8,877. Expectation being that if you're living at home, even though you're not paying rent, you may have greater travel costs. So if you're commuting into university, a larger proportion of your loan will be taken up by travel costs, as opposed to when you're living in Derby. Although your accommodation cost will be higher, your travel cost would be anticipated to be lower. Now you can get slightly more than these headline figures. Again, if you're doing one of the NHS, one of the healthcare courses, so nursing, occupational therapy, midwifery, as we mentioned previously, and that's because these are classed as long courses, so there's more weeks in the academic year. So the more weeks in the academic year, then the more maintenance loan you get, essentially pro rata for that number of weeks. So bear that in mind. If you're looking at a figure of 10,554, but you're doing nursing, that might increase to somewhere around 11, and maybe even approaching £12,000, depending on the number of weeks in that academic year. The minimum amounts that you can see in brackets, which we'll have a look in a moment, that's essentially the lower rate. So if the household income is above around £62,000, you'll only be eligible for the lower rate, but it doesn't get any lower than that. So even if the household income is high, you can still get the maximum tuition fee loan and a proportion of the maintenance loan. So if we can have the next slide, please, that might give us a bit more of an idea on figures. Okay, so two bands: away from home, living at home. And again, just to clarify with the asterisk there, that whenever the Student Loans Company or Student Finance England use the word home, they mean parental home. It can be a bit confusing sometimes for mature students who have their own house and they live at home, but they would be classed by student finance as living away from home, because home always means parental home. So looking at the two columns and the top cells, so the maximum for a household income under £25,000, so up to £25,000, is the 10,554 and the 8,877. Other end of that spectrum, if the household income is over £60,000 if you're living at home, or it's 62,350 if you're living away from home, at the lower rate of 4,915 or the 3,907. Now, all of the numbers in between, they're not set as those numbers because the household incomes aren't set at 30, 35, 40, 45,000. You do receive a maintenance loan calculated pound for pound. So if your household income is, for example, £42,150, you'll get a maintenance loan for that figure. So these are just to give you an idea. They're not set bands of entitlement. They're just to give you an idea. But if you do want to get a really clear idea of what's available, if we can have the next slide, please, that will show the student finance calculator. So this is available on gov.uk. So you can navigate manually through gov.uk, through education and learning, student finance, and then there's the student finance calculator, or any kind of internet search on any of the keywords student funding finance calculator will take you to this calculator. It only asks you about 5 questions. It just needs to know when you'll be going to university. It will need to know, where you're going to be living, so home or away from home. It will ask you what the tuition fee is. That's just so it can calculate the tuition fee loan. The tuition fee is 9,535. Whatever number you put in that box, it will transfer that to the amount of the tuition fee loan. It's just how that works. So the key questions in the calculator really are where you're going to be living. So it establishes whether you're at home or away from home, and it asks what the annual household income is. So if you put that income figure in, then it will give you an amount of maintenance loan based on that income figure. So if you say, I'm living away from home and household income is £18,000, then it'll give you the figure of the 10,500. If you tell it that your household income is £70,000, you'll get the minimum figure. But if you put your household income into that calculator, it will give you an accurate figure of the maintenance loan. So it's a really useful tool. It takes a couple of minutes to put the numbers in, but it just gives you a really clear idea of what you can expect to get for your student funding. And this is something you can use, prior to applying for your student funding. If you apply for your student funding, then at the end of that process, you'll know anyway. But if you just want to have a look, for example, after this session tonight, if you just want to have a look this evening, just to give yourself an idea, go onto the student funding calculator and just have a look at that. Like a really clear, really useful, simple tool to use. Next slide, please. Okay, so the assessment. So like we say, for the tuition fee loan, it's non-means tested, so there's no assessment of household income. But the maintenance loan is means tested, so they do, and by they, Student Finance England, they do assess the household income. So for dependent students, that's students under 25 years of age. So if you're coming to university and you're under 25, Student Finance will automatically be looking for your parental household income. So a lot of times students will think, well, 21 is when you become a mature student. It's 25 for the purposes of household income assessment for student funding. So what do they mean by parental household income? So it's the household income of the parent or parents, so the natural parents that you normally live with. If parents are separated or divorced, it's the income of the parent that you live with. If that parent has remarried or lives with a partner, so there's their income in the household as well, then it's their income that is assessed as well. It's essentially whatever equates to parent or parents in that household. That is what SFE will look to assess. Anyone else in the household they're not interested in, siblings, even if they're working full time, living in the household, they're not interested. It's purely the income of the parent or parents. Sometimes students, if parents are separated or divorced and they're living between houses 50-50, so they share their time between parental homes, it's at the discretion of the student to nominate their sponsor or sponsors. So Student Finance England will essentially ask you to give the details of the parent or parents that you want to be assessed on. So it's only one household. So if you've got one parent in one household, one parent in the other household, they won't assess both households, but you just need to nominate which one you want to be assessed. And that's at the discretion of the student. So I suppose there is an argument that if you've got two households and one parent has got a very high household income and one parent has got a very low household income, then you would nominate naturally the parent with the lower income, because that would maximize the funding available to you. And that's absolutely fine. SFE are perfectly happy for you to do that, because they will always leave it at your discretion to nominate your sponsor when it comes to that. There are exceptions to to that for assessment purposes, and that's if a student has independent status. So independent student status, there are various criteria for that. If a student's over 25 on the first day of the academic year, so that being the 1st of September in any academic year, if you're over 25, then they don't assess parents. Similarly, if you've been financially self-supporting for 3 years prior to the start of the course, you can be independent. If you're married, if you have a child, if you're estranged from your parents, if you have no living parents, then SFE will assess you as an independent student. As an independent student, they will only ever assess the income of a partner. So if you're an independent single student, then your income will always be assessed as 0, because SFE will never assess your income, even if you're working full-time or part-time. They're not interested in the income of the student. It's only ever the income of the sponsor, and a sponsor can only be parent or parents or a partner. So just to give you some information there, if there's any queries about your status, about your dependent or independent status, you can have a conversation with SFE about the the specifics of your status, and they will talk you through any assessment and any evidence or information that they need to assess that for you. Okay, next slide, please. So when it comes to applying for student funding, the application for 2025-6 is open now. It opens on the 10th of March. So it opened on the 10th of March. It's been open a couple of weeks now. So the application is there. So you can apply now, this evening, tomorrow. You can apply, as of now, the application is open. There is a deadline that everyone will talk to you about, and SFE will talk to you about it, and your school and your college may talk to you about it. And they will always say that the deadline is the end of May. And so you've got to apply by the end of May, or you won't be able to apply for student funding. That's not actually correct. There are deadlines and there are deadlines. Now, the deadline of May, so the end of May, what they mean by that is that if you want to guarantee that your student funding is in place and fully assessed and ready to go in September, they give a deadline of the end of May, which gives them enough time to complete any complex assessment of household income. So it just gives them enough time. Bear in mind that in the first 4 weeks of the application being open, so the first 4 weeks of March and going into the beginning of April, that's when they get the fewest applications for student funding. So if you apply in the first 4 weeks, your application will go through very quickly. As you go through the months, April, May, certainly into June and July, that's when the applications peak. So if you start applying in July and August, it can take 8, 12, 16 weeks for your application to get assessed. If you apply in March and April, it might take 2 or 3 weeks as a maximum. So apply early is always the key message there. Again, you don't have to apply before May, but if you want to get your funding in place, we'd always advise that you do that. What's important to note is that you don't have to have a confirmed place on a course to apply for student funding. Student funding is the same nationally. Doesn't matter which university you're going to, what course you're doing, your student funding is the same. So you don't have to have a confirmed place at university to apply for your student funding. They will ask you the question on the application. It will ask you to give the name of the university and the name of the course. So you've got to put something in those 2 boxes, otherwise it won't let you proceed with the application. So if you're pretty sure where you're going to go and you think this is where I'm going, that's what I'm doing, 100%, put that in with confidence and you're okay. If you've only narrowed it down to half a dozen universities and half a dozen courses, just put down your best guess. Put down the university you think you're going to and the course that you think you're going to be doing. That will allow you to complete the application process. If those details change at any point, from submitting the application, that's fine. You can just log back in, change the name of the university and change the name of the course. And you can do that and it will update overnight. So you can do that as many times as you want during the summer and it will just update overnight, but it won't affect, your eligibility or your entitlement or any of your student funding. But just don't wait until August, until you know exactly what you're doing, where you're going to apply for your funding, because you may not get it through until October, November. So apply on your best guess. If it changes, go back in and change it. The only really important thing to bear in mind is on the day of enrolment, and that's what triggers your student funding. On the day of enrolment, the university details on your application have to match the university that you enroll at. So if you put down University of Derby and you enroll at the University of Derby, at the end of enrolment, the university will send an electronic file to Student Finance England to say that you've arrived. That message goes to Student Finance England and that will release your student funding. If you've got a different university on your application to the university that you enroll at, then that message won't reach Student Finance England, because they'll be waiting for an electronic notification from one university, but it won't come because you've enrolled at a different university. Doesn't mean to say that you won't get your funding. It just means to say that it might take a few weeks for you to realise that it's not coming, and then to go in and, submit a change of circumstances to change the university details. Once you've enrolled, you can't change the details on your application. It's got to be the university that does it. So if you want to change your details, you've got to do it before you enroll. But just bear that in mind. As long as on the day of enrolment, the university that you enroll at is the same as the university on your application, then there will be no issues with your funding being released. Next slide, please. Okay, so you apply for your student funding, you've enrolled at university, and so now you're looking to receive the payment of your loans. As soon as your student funding has been approved and has been calculated by Student Finance, so that will be done, if you apply in April, that'll be done, in a few weeks. You will know exactly what you're getting and when you're getting it. You'll get a payment schedule, which will tell you exactly when you're getting your money in September and January and April. So you will have set payment dates. The April payment will be set. There will be a date and an amount. The January payment equally will be set. There will be a date and amount. The September payment can change slightly in that there will be a date for September, which will be the first possible date of the academic year. So that will be the date on the form. But your funding will only be received 3 to 5 days after enrolment. So your funding statement may say that you'll get your first payment on Monday, the 10th of September. But if Monday, the 10th of September is the date that you enroll, you'll probably get your money on the Thursday. So just bear that in mind. Whatever date it says for September, it will be 3 to 5 days after you've enrolled. But January will be set and April will be set. January is always the same. It's always around between the 2nd and the 4th of January. The April payment does vary, and it varies depending on when Easter is. For example, this year, it's a really late Easter, so the April payment is the 28th of April, whereas in previous years, if it's an earlier Easter, then the payment is normally in the first week of April. So you'll still get it in April, but depends on when Easter falls. But you will know prior to the start of the course, when you're going to get it, because they will have already calculated that payment date. So you get your payments, 3 installments, September, January, April. And you don't pay anything back until after the course is completed. And that kind of leads naturally on to repayment. So again, you've applied for your student funding, you've received your student funding, you've completed your 3 or 4 years at university. And then in the April after you've graduated, that's when repayments kick in. You pay 9% of your income over the threshold of £25,000, and all remaining balances are written off after 40 years. It's essentially a graduate tax. It's an extra amount of money you'll pay for a 40-year period based on what you've borrowed and based on your future earnings. And so it's important to put that into some kind of context, because 9% of £25,000 over 40 years doesn't make a lot of sense just just in itself. So if we can have the next slide, please, we'll start to have a look at what the repayments look like in the real world. So what it means is that up to £25,000 gross income, you're paying nothing back to the student loans company. Doesn't matter what you borrowed. You can have 3 years of tuition fee loans, 3 years of maintenance loans, and that could be anything, I suppose 3 years of tuition, 3 years of maintenance at the maximum amount. It could be around £60,000, something like that. That's what will be on a piece of paper. That's what will be on a screen as what you owe to the government from your student loans. It's all put into one amount. So you don't pay back separately your tuition fee loan and your maintenance loan. It's one amount, and that one amount is subject to the repayment terms of 9% of income over £25,000. So what it means, so I've been to university for 3 years. I've had the maximum loan for tuition fee and for maintenance loan. So I've left university and I owe the government £60,000 for the pleasure. I'm working, I'm earning under £25,000 on a monthly basis. I'm paying nothing back to the government. I'm paying nothing back to my student loan. If I pay nothing back for the first 2 years, it means that, there's only 38 years of repayments left. If I pay nothing back for the first 5 years, there's only 35 years of repayments left. The 9%, what it means in real terms is that for every £1,000 that you earn over the threshold, you pay 9%. So if I'm earning £26,000, 9% of, so that's £1,000 over the threshold. 9% of £1,000 is £90. Divide that over 12 months of the year. That means that I'm paying back £7.50 a month against my £60,000 student loan. If I'm earning £30,000, I'm £5,000 over the threshold. So that £5,000 is subject to 9%. And over 12 months, that's £37.50 a month. The more you earn, the more you'll repay. And so for every £1,000 you earn over the threshold, it's £7.50 a month. So it just goes up in multiples of £7.50. If I'm earning £60,000, yep, I'll be paying a bit more to the student loans company. I'll be paying £262.50, but that's based on that higher income. And if we can have a look at the next slide, please, that again just puts a little bit more context into what the student loan repayments mean, again, in real terms. So against, anything else that you're going to be paying for. So again, I'm earning £25,000. I'm paying nothing back against my student loan, but I'm paying £207 a month in income tax, and I'm paying £104 in national insurance. If I'm earning £30,000 a year, yep, I'm paying £37.50 against my student loan, but I'm paying £290 in income tax. I'm paying £145 in national insurance. So again, the more you earn, the more you'll repay. And in this sense, it essentially it's a graduate tax. It's another tax that you will pay for a 40-year period. So you'll always pay income tax forever. You'll pay national insurance forever, but your student loan will be, limited to those 40 years. Most students will pay some of their student loan back. Some students will pay it all back, absolutely. If they're earning enough and they're paying back enough, they will pay it all back. Some students will pay nothing back because they'll never reach that threshold of repayment of £25,000 because of circumstances, that are personal to them. But most students will pay some of their loan back. But again, compared to what you'll pay in income tax, national insurance, and other costs, going through your life, it's certainly the least of the deductions that will be made, against your gross income. So again, bear that in mind. It's not going to be the most significant thing that you'll be paying back as stoppages through your wages. It's not seen as debt by the government. No one sees it as debt. Banks don't see it as debt. Mortgage companies don't see it as debt, just as they don't see what you pay in income tax as debt or what you'll pay in national insurance over a lifetime as debt. It's just what you pay to the government based on your earnings. So bear that in mind. Don't let it be a barrier. If you're earning, you'll be paying it back, absolutely, but you'll be paying other things as well. So just be reassured by that. And next slide, please. Okay, so if we're studying a nursing or allied healthcare course, so again, I think the list at the University of Derby, so we've got all the nursing courses, diagnostic radiography, occupational therapy, midwifery, and physiotherapy. If you're on any of those courses, then you can also apply to the NHS for the Learning Support Fund. So this is in addition to any other funding. So you can receive your tuition-free loan, you can receive your maintenance loan based on your household income, and if you're doing one of the allied health courses, you can apply for the NHS Learning Support Fund, which is the training grant of £5,000 a year. If you've got any children whilst at university, I think if they're under 15, you can get a £2,000 additional support in parental support. Also, whilst you're doing these courses, if you're on placement, you can get a reimbursement or a part reimbursement of travel and dual accommodation expenses. So there's additional support from the NHS to cover those courses. Now, importantly, this funding is non-means tested and it is non-repayable. So, for example, if you're coming to university, you don't have any dependents, it's just you on BSc nursing. You apply to the NHS, and on top of all of your student funding, regardless of what your student funding is, you'll get a £5,000 training grant. You'll get that every year, paid in 3 instalments over the academic year. So over 3 years, you'll get £15,000 extra from the NHS, and you won't pay that back. So unlike the tuition fee loan and the maintenance loan, the training grants, with it being a grant, is non-repayable. So if you're on those courses, you should be aware of it. You'll probably get signposted to this support anyway. But just bear it in mind, be mindful of it. If you're looking at any of the allied health courses, just be mindful that you can get this support. Now, you can't apply for this support until you've applied for your funding through Student Finance England, because the only eligibility criteria for this support essentially is that you're eligible to receive support from Student Finance England. So at the point of application for the NHS support, you'll be asked to provide evidence of your SFE student funding, which is why I don't think this application goes live until around July. So don't worry if you apply for your student funding in April and then you can't find the application for nursing for 25/6. I don't think it goes live until July. And because it's non-means tested, and there's very, very little evidence requirement, other than it's you, this is the course that you're on and you're eligible for student funding, It's a very quick process, so don't worry that you're going to miss it. You can apply for it in plenty of time before September. Okay, next slide, please. So when it comes to getting information, hopefully you found this evening useful, and there will be a Q&A session after the presentation's finished in a couple of minutes. But just have a look at information. University websites are a great source of information. Information on gov.uk, so for example the Student Finance Calculator, Student Finance England, loads of information on their pages which exist on a site called the Student Room. So it's all there. What I mentioned at the beginning about bursary scholarships, like I say, they're all individual to individual universities. It's the only element of support that isn't statutory. So it's not like the tuition fee loan and the maintenance loan that you can get at all universities regardless. Bursaries and scholarships are specific to individual universities. So at the University of Derby, we've got the university bursary. It's currently under review, as it will be every year, and any updates to that will be available on the university website. But if you were to look on there now, so you go on the university website, type in the word bursary in the search, it will take you to the current bursary page. We have a university bursary. It's a cash bursary paid into a student's account, and it's based on household income. Household income, we use the information from Student Finance England, so they will assess your household income as part of your student funding application, and we use that information to assess you automatically for a bursary. So there's no application requirements. If your household income is under £25,000, you get a £1,000 bursary. If it's between 25,000 and 36,592, you get a £600 bursary. Over 36,592, then you won't get a bursary, but there's no application. It's assessed automatically. And if that is still the same bursary in September 25, then that's what we will do. But any changes, then we will assess the bursary appropriately based on any changes. But as you're looking at other universities, if you're looking at universities nationally, make sure you know what's available. So just again, type in the word bursary or scholarship into their website, see what's there. You just need to be mindful that sometimes they're based on household income, sometimes they're based on other criteria. So it could be academic achievements, it could be something geographical, it could be something specific to the course that you're doing. And also, equally important, sometimes they're automatic and sometimes they're an application-based bursary. So if there's an application-based bursary and you're eligible for it, make sure you apply for it, because if it's there and you're eligible but you don't apply, then obviously you won't get it. So again, do your research on bursaries, just see what's out there, type in the word bursary to any university website and it will tell you what's there. So if you do that to the University of Derby tonight, it will show you the university bursary. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so summing up, essential tips. One of the most important ones is apply for your student funding as soon as possible. Don't wait until clearing. Don't wait until you've completed study. Don't wait until exactly what university you're going to, what course you're going on. Don't wait until you've got a move-in date for halls. Nothing like that. Apply for your student funding as soon as you can. If you can apply this week, fantastic. Next week, fantastic. It's a sizable application, but it is a one-stop shop. It is a single point of application for tuition fee support and for maintenance loan support. For your first application, SFE have never met you before, so they'll need to know everything about you. So it'll start off with your name, date of birth, your address, national insurance number, all that kind of thing. So it just needs to identify you. So it will ask you a lot of questions, but just take each question one at a time. Just keep answering the questions until they stop asking the questions. That's the best thing to do. At any point during the application, you can save, and then you can just save your progress and then go back to it. So if you feel that you've done enough for one evening, you can save it and come back the next day. But realistically, if you just go through the questions methodically, it shouldn't take you more than an hour to get your student funding application in. So apply as soon as possible. Key message. Try and work out a budget plan before you start. So again, if you apply for your funding or you've been on the calculator and you know how much you're going to get, just sit down and try and work out a budget. If you know what your accommodation costs are going to be, put that down and then look at it against what your student funding is going to be and just try and work out, what funding you've got and what outgoings you've got. So it's just a simple budget, really. Income and outgoings, just give yourself an idea. So when you arrive in September, you've got a relatively good idea of what your income is and what your outgoings are. Again, make sure you've got your bank account ready to go, because Student Finance England will need details of a bank account. If you're happy with the account you've got, fantastic, just stick with that. But have a chat with your bank about student bank account, see if there's anything that they will give you, because you're going to university. They might just give you an interest-free overdraft, which again is a useful budgeting tool. But just see, and if there's anything, any benefits to having a student bank account, then go with that. But if you're happy with where you are, then just stick with where you are. And don't panic, I suppose, is the key message. It can feel a little bit overwhelming. You're coming to university, you've got your funding to sort out, you're still at school or college, you've still got a lot of stuff going on there. You might be moving out for the first time. Again, it can be overwhelming for parents because you've got kids that are moving out for the first time and you're going to be worried about them and their finances and how they're going to be. But try not to panic about it. When it comes to student funding, see it for what it is. You're coming to university, you've got to pay tuition fees, you've got to fund yourself through, for your living costs. So you can apply for your student funding for that, for all of those costs. So just see it as it is. Try not to be overwhelmed, but if you are overwhelmed, then you can contact us, and I'm hoping that we've got some contact details on the next slide. Yeah, so you can contact us, Student Money Advice Team in Student Services. Email address is smart@derby.ac.uk. So if you want to give us a call, want to drop us a line, there's only myself and 2 other money advisors in the team, so we're quite easy to get hold of, quite easy to talk to. If you've got any questions at all, just drop us a line, email smart@derby.ac.uk, and we'll be happy to answer any questions and give you any information, advice, guidance that you may need. Okay, next slide. Okay, so if you want to come and visit us at the university, we do this weekend have an experience day. So Saturday the 29th of March from 9:30 until 2. So if you go onto the university website after this event, there is a big button in the middle of the screen that you can click and you can sign up for that event. We've also got an open day on Saturday the 21st of June. So at any of these events, you can go on a campus tour. There's virtual tours available anyway online, and you can have you can look through the halls of residence, and there's 360 tours available there. At the open days or at the experience day this weekend, you can come and talk to us, within the student services team. You can have a look at taster sessions, again, campus tours, have a look at accommodation. So you can actually go and physically look around some rooms and just see what's there and see what's right for you, because that's the most important thing, that is right for you. But yeah, come and join us. I'll be there Saturday. So yeah, come and join us on Saturday or in June if you get the opportunity. Okay, and next slide, please. Okay, yeah, that's it. So just to say thank you. Thanks for bearing with me for 37 minutes. Hope you got something out of it. Hope you're not too overwhelmed by it all. And I'll pass back to Charlotte, and I think we may have some questions.
Hi, Rob. Thank you for an excellent presentation. We do have some questions. The first one is from a student saying, I haven't received my offer yet. Can I still apply for student finance?
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. We would absolutely tell you to do that. Just again, bear in mind, like we spoke about, when it comes to the point of what's the name of the university and what's the name of the course, put down your best guess. It doesn't matter that you've not got a confirmed place. And like I say, if it takes a few weeks, even months, until you know exactly what you're doing, you can log back in, you can change that information yourself. It will update overnight. It probably what you want. If you're still living away from home, it doesn't matter what university you're going to, your funding will still be the same. So do that. Just like we said, just make sure that on the day of enrollment, the university that you're going to and you're about to enroll at, you've got those details up to date on your application. That's just the key thing. But 100%, doesn't matter whether you know or not, get your application in as soon as you can.
Perfect. Thank you. We had another question. Someone saying, I currently earn around £30,000 a year as an 18-year-old dependent. If I only intend on working part-time during my degree, will that be £30,000 be included in my household income?
If you're the student, then that income won't be counted. So a student's income is always defaulted to zero. So it doesn't matter what you've earned in the past, doesn't matter what you're earning now, and it doesn't matter what you're earning when you're at university. Some students will continue to work, possibly even full time whilst they're studying, if that fits in with their studies. Most students will either not work or work part time. That's kind of what we see. But a student's income is always defaulted to zero. They, like I say, SFE will only assess the income of the sponsor, and a sponsor can only be a parent or parents, or if you're an independent student, then a sponsor can only be your partner. So if you're the student, disregard your income completely because it won't be assessed.
Thank you. Someone else has asked, if the student loan repayment rates change after I start my degree, will the new ones still apply to me?
you at the point of the first enrollment, and the point where you first apply for your student funding, you're signing essentially a contract with Student Finance England, with the student loans company. They're kind of interchangeable. Student Finance England, they do the assessment. The student loans company pay the money, and they work with the repayments as well. So when you apply for your student funding, you deal with Student Finance England. After the fact, you're dealing with the student loans company. If anything changes, it will normally just be applied to the new group of students that are coming through. Student funding and repayments have always changed. I mean, student loans, they started in 1992, and at that point, repayments were essentially over a set period of 5 years. So students reached the average income threshold, which at the time was about £20,000, and as soon as you hit that mark, you paid back all of your student loan over 60 months, so over a 5-year period. But again, loans were, I think students could only get about I only got about £1,000 a year when I was at university in the 90s. Then as student loans go up and repayment plans change and thresholds change, then those rules stick with the students that are signed up to those rules. So if you're applying in September, then you will be paying on that threshold. So your threshold is £25,000 and it's 9%. If there's any significant changes, you won't be bound by them. You'll be bound by the rules that you're signed up to. If they do change the thresholds, then you'll get appropriate notification. But as far as we know, and what has always been the case, is that you are contracted, or you're contracted to the repayment terms that you stick with for that period. So there shouldn't be any changes to those, and we haven't seen any changes certainly for the last 30 odd years. If they've changed, they've only changed with the new cohort of students, and the students that have come before have always had their repayment terms, honoured, and they stick with them. So you shouldn't see any changes.
Perfect, thank you. Someone else has asked, I've read about some support for lower income areas, and if I'm the first child to attend university in my family, do I do this after I apply for finance or before?
Again, this will be whatever support is available specifically from an individual university. So it may be that there's a university out there that's got a first in the family bursary. It may be that they've got a local bursary. Certainly at the university, from going back 20 years, we used to have a postcode bursary. So if you were local to the university in a certain certain area with a certain postcode, you got a I think our old postcode bursary was about £300. That hasn't existed for about 16 years, but there may be some universities out there that have got it. It depends on what they're trying to target and who their audience is and what their student population is. But that's why it's important to look at all the different universities and the universities that you're looking at to see what's available. At the University of Derby, we've got one bursary, which is the university bursary, based on household income, automatically assessed. And that's that. But yeah, absolutely, there may be other universities out there that have got a first in the family. They may have a postcode bursary or a regional bursary. So make sure that you have a look at them, see what's available. And if it's an application process, have a look at their criteria. There'll be application dates, there'll be closing dates, opening dates. So just make sure that you're aware of it, and just have a look at what's available.
Thank you. Someone has asked, are there any extra support available? Is there any extra support available for students with disabilities?
Yeah. So if you have a specific learning difference or a disability, physical or mental disability, there is support available again through Student Finance England, which is DSA, so Disabled Students Allowance. At the point where you apply for student funding, there will be a question that will ask you to identify disability or long-term health condition, and that will take you through to a stage of the application which is for Disabled Students Allowance, and that will be automatic, and that it will kind of lead you through that process. You'll get contacts with the university pre-entry, because they will get that information from Student Finance England. You'll have a study needs assessment. The university will set up a support plan, and if part of that support plan you need some additional financial support. Now, important to note, the financial support is never paid to the student. The financial support is to cover additional costs that the student needs due to their disability. So if they need some one-to-one support whilst they're at university, and so the university needs to employ someone to support that student or provide the student with some additional software or hardware based on their study needs assessment, then DSA can pay for that equipment or pay for that support. So it's never additional support that's paid to the students. So students don't get money from DSA, but DSA can pay for any additional support that the student needs, for their specific needs. So, but if you're declaring a disability on your application, then that will happen. It's an automatic process that will happen.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Someone has asked, how does it work with assessing household income if my sibling is also starting university this year?
Okay, so there is certain disregards. So if the sponsors, so parent or parents, have got multiple children, so multiple children at university, so one or more of their children are at university at the same time, they do apply a disregard to the household income. They don't do anything as fantastic as split the household income in half and give half to one student and half to the other, but they do apply a disregard. I couldn't tell you how much that is, but they do apply a disregard to the household income if you've got multiple children at university. There is also, if in the household there are any children, so if a student's got siblings who are still at school or in further education, there is an equivalent disregard to the household income. It's around, I think, it's around £1,030 a year that they will deduct off the gross household income if there is another child in a household in a school or further education. But additional to that, if there's another child at university at the same time, there's another calculation, there's another disregard to the household income. Like I say, it doesn't cut it in half or anything like that, but they will acknowledge that there are multiple children at university and reduce the gross income accordingly. You can speak to Student Finance England. They may or may not have specific information to give you, but they're the people, as the assessors, that may be better placed to answer that question. But yes, there is a disregard. How much that is, I couldn't give you a number.
Thank you. Someone has asked, is non-taxable income taken into account?
They take into account any earned or unearned income. By unearned income, what they talk about, what they look normally is any money that you earn from investments, or private pensions. So if someone, for example, has got a couple of properties that they rent out, it's not the value of the properties, obviously, but it's any income that you get from those properties. And again, with any investments, any stocks and shares, it's the income that you earn from that, rather than the capital itself. So yeah, any earned or unearned income, but they check it all with HMRC, and there's certain information that they will ask parents or sponsors for on the application. So yeah, any earned or unearned income is the mantra for that. Yeah.
Thank you. Someone has asked, if my parents receive universal credit and benefits for my siblings, is this taken into account?
Again, yep, they'll take into account any income. There are certain benefits that they don't take into account. There's things like PIP and other allowances that they don't take into account as income. But universal credit they do take as income. But again, if the significant income into a household is universal credit, it's unlikely to be higher than the lower threshold. But yeah, they will take universal credit into account as income. But if universal credit is the only income, if it's under £25,000, then it won't affect the calculation of the maximum maintenance loan.
Thank you. And just building on that, someone has asked a similar question, but ask it anyway, just to be sure.
Yeah.
Someone has said, I work 20 hours a week, I'm on universal credit, and I receive child benefit. Will this sum up as household income?
Again, if it's the student asking the question, then that income will be disregarded, entirely. If it's the sponsor asking the question, then again, child benefit isn't taken into account. Universal credit is. What was the other one? Sorry. Just the hours of work.
It was 20 hours of work,
Yeah.
universal credit, and child benefit.
Yep. So child benefit, no, that's not assessed. If it's the sponsor asking the question, then absolutely, their income, and that income will include universal credit. If it's a student asking the question and that's their current income, then all of that will be disregarded.
Thank you. Someone has asked, do I have to reapply for student finance on a year-by-year basis until I graduate?
Yep, good question. Yep, you do. It's not quite as arduous for year 2, year 3. it's what they call a reapplication for student funding in year 2 and year 3. So the first year is the big one because they've never met you before. They don't know who you are at the first point of application, so they need to ask you every question in the world, and they will ask you every question in the world. But that's just to build, to create, your application in the first instance. Yep. Year 2, year 3, as soon as it's open, you can just log back on and reapply. I imagine you'll get some kind of, because it's all automated now, you'll get some kind of email notification from SFE every year to say it's time to reapply. But it is exactly that. It's a reapplication. So you log into your account. It will present you with the previous year's application. There'll be a long list of information and answers. And essentially it will say, has anything changed? And if nothing's changed, you click the submit button at the bottom, and that's you done. They will go back to sponsors, so parents or partner, and again reassess household income for the new academic year. But the general, so long as your course hasn't changed, you're progressing as normal from stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. So you're just progressing through study as normal. It's a reapplication for student funding. Nothing's changed. You just click the big green submit button at the bottom, and then you're done. So yeah, a very, very quick process in future years.
Someone has asked, how soon will the NHS bursary be paid?
It's different it's different payment dates to student funding. So student funding is September, January, and April. The NHS funding is, I think, it's November, February, and I think around June. So it's paid slightly differently. So you'll get a student loan payment in September, NHS in November, student loan in January, NHS I think it's February, and then student loan in April, and then the final NHS one will be, I think it's around June time. So just before the summer. But again, you'll get a payment schedule, so you'll see a date and an amount for each of the payments. So which is why, again, when it comes to applying, because the first payment isn't made until November, there's loads and loads of time to get the application in. You can apply, it's the one thing that you can apply for, once you've enrolled, because it's a quick process. There's no real assessment. It's not means tested, and the first payment isn't until November. So you can be all relaxed about the NHS funding.
Thank you. Someone has asked, do you offer bursaries for students from low income households?
Yep. So again, university bursary currently, and as we anticipate no significant changes for next year, is entirely based on household income. So it's automatically assessed based on the household income details that we will receive from Student Finance England. So household income up to £25,000 is £1,000 bursary, and between 25,001 and 36,592, it's a £600 bursary. So automatically assessed. We start assessing once students have enrolled. So you enroll in September. So say second week of September, it takes us about 6 weeks to assess. We have about 13,000 potential students to assess every year for bursary. So it takes us about 6 weeks to complete the assessment process. We normally notify students by latest the end of October, and the first payment isn't normally due till the end of November. So again, have a look at the university bursary, have a look at the criteria. If it looks like you're eligible, then you'll probably be eligible, but it just takes us a few weeks to crunch all the numbers and make sure that everyone's getting what they're entitled to. But first payment end of November. So again, don't be over concerned about it. If you've not heard anything for a few weeks, you will hear if you're eligible.
Thank you. Someone has asked, do repayments increase with respect to inflation?
There's a couple of things there. If we mean with what you borrow is subject to any interest, based on that, then it's subject to interest. So there'll always be an interest amount that's added to anything that's outstanding. When it comes to repayments, the threshold is £25,000. It's been £25,000 for a number of years. So no, there's no inflationary increase to that threshold of £25,000. It is currently set at £25,000, and that's the starting threshold. So it's 9% of your income over £25,000. That's what it is currently.
Thank you. We've got about 5 minutes left and a lot of questions, so we'll try and get through as many as we possibly can.
Brilliant.
Someone has asked, what happens to my student loan if I leave my course before graduating?
Okay, so if you leave your course, so you end your course, it's essentially the same thing. So they wait until the new tax year. So in the April after, it's either the April after you've completed study or the April after you've left your course. So that's, again, you'll just fall into repayments as normal. If you do 1 year and then you leave and you never go back to university, then whatever you borrowed for that 1 year will just be subject to the repayments, which again will be 9% of your income over £25,000 for 40 years. So whatever that means to you. So, regardless of what you borrowed and how many years you've studied, it's the same rules apply.
Thank you. Someone has asked, as a mature student, if I retire before the 40-year time cap, will it come out of my pension?
If your pension's over £25,000, again, it doesn't matter. Age isn't a limiter to the 40 years. It's purely on your income. If your pensionable income, so the income that you're receiving once you've retired, is over £25,000, then it's 9% of your income over £25,000. If your pension is below £25,000 and is always below £25,000 forever, then you'll never make another repayment against your student loan. It will just be, you just, again, regardless of what your circumstances are, whether you're working, not working, or you're retired, it's the £25,000 and 9% above that threshold.
Thank you. Someone has asked, what happens if I have my finance approved and then I decide not to go to university?
Okay, so the only thing that releases your student funding is enrolment. So you can apply for your student funding, and again, if you're not quite sure whether you're going to go or not, for the sake of an hour of your life, apply for student funding, and then it's in place if you need it. The only thing that releases your student funding is the physical process of your enrolment. So you go to university, you sit down with an enrolment officer, you enroll at university. The university then sends that message to Student Finance England to say, yep, they've arrived, and that releases your student funding. So if you don't go to university and you don't enroll, all that will happen after a period of time, after a couple of months, Student Finance England will take your application, they'll see that there's no enrolment attached to it, and they'll just put it away in a virtual filing cabinet, and that's it. If you then decide to go to university the next year, you'll just go through the process again and apply for your student funding again as a new student for the next year. But yeah, if you don't go to university, you're not going to get the money, unfortunately.
Thank you. Someone has asked, how do I apply for the NHS grant?
Yep, so you go through, it's an application through the NHS. So if you look, again, you can go on, if you just Google NHS LSF, so Learning Support Fund LSF, if you Google NHS LSF, then it will take you straight to that site. At the moment, because you can only apply for 6 months after the start of the course, so at the moment there probably won't be an application process there unless there's something there for March cohort students, but you certainly can't apply now for September 25. But if you want to have a look, if you want to see what it looks like, just Google either longhand NHS Learning Support Fund or Google NHS LSF, click enter, and it takes you straight there. But it should go live in about July.
Thank you. Someone has asked, if deciding to do a deferred entry, what do you need to do if you've already applied for student finance?
Okay, so again, if you apply for your student finance and you're deferring for a year, you can either tell SFE that you're not going to university and they'll just cancel your application, or you can just leave it alone. Just leave it alone. If you're not enrolling, it won't release your student funding. It'll get filed away, and then this time next year, you just apply again as a new student. So like I say, the only thing that triggers your student funding is the physical process of enrolment. So if you don't enroll, you don't get your student funding activated.
Thank you. Someone has said, if you only want the tuition loan, can I apply online, or do I need to do it by form through post?
No, same application. So single point of application. So it takes you through tuition fee loan and maintenance loan, and it will ask you at every step, do you want to apply for this? Yes, no. Do you want to apply for this? Yes, no. So and it will ask you how much do you want to apply for. So you don't have to apply for the full amount. So if you wanted to apply for the tuition fee loan but not the maintenance loan, or the tuition fee loan and only a proportion of the maintenance loan, that's fine. There will always be an opportunity to say yes or no to the support, and if you've said yes, there's also a second opportunity to apply for all of it, none of it, or some of it. So you can always do that. And if your circumstances change during the academic year, you can always go back and request a bit more up to the maximum that you're entitled to. So if you only want the tuition fee loan, apply for the tuition fee loan, say no thanks to the maintenance loan, and then you're done.
Thank you. A couple of questions around this, so we'll just go back over it. Should I still apply for my student loan even if I haven't received an offer yet?
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. Yep, do that.
Thank you. Someone has said, do they assess sponsors' income based on the current/previous tax year?
It's 2 previous tax years. So for September 2025, it's the tax year 2023-24. So it's 2 previous tax years. Now, importantly, if the household income is reduced by more than 15%, they will do a current year income assessment. So they look at the tax year 2 years ago. If the income's gone up, then fine, they'll catch up with you in 2 years' time. If the income's gone down by more than 15%, so if 2 years ago income was £40,000, it's now £25,000. They will assess you from 2 years ago first because they need a benchmark. But if your income has gone down by more than 15%, let them know. They'll send you a current year income assessment form. Sponsors fill that out, and then you can get assessed on the current year income. But as a default setting, it's 2 years ago. But if it's gone down, they will reassess you.
Thank you. Someone has asked, do they take savings into account?
No, again, only if you are receiving an income from those savings, but the actual capital amount itself, no.
Thank you. Another question. Someone has said, I am a cancer survivor, mature student, currently not working. My husband's income is £32,000 annually. It doesn't allow me to apply for any benefits regarding to the financial support with my disability. I was refused to get UC. Will I be able to get financial support at the University of Derby?
Yep. So tuition-free loan is non-means tested. Maintenance loan will be assessed on partner's income. So that £32,000 will give you, a maintenance loan based on that, on the income. So again, have a look at the calculator if you want to look at that income amount before you apply. Again, be mindful that you're looking at the living away from home rate because you're not living in the parental home. So again, it's counterintuitive, but even though you live at home, from SFE's point of view, you're living away from home. So yeah, your maintenance loan will be assessed on that, on partner's income. If you need any additional support, through disabled students allowance, that's non-means tested. So if you need some support through that support can be provided through the normal process, through a study needs assessment, through a support plan, through support through disabled students allowance that will support any additional need, any additional costs. So it's not money to you, but it is money that supports your additional need at university. And DSA is non-means tested. It's assessed based on need rather than ability to pay. So it's non-means tested.
Thank you. And that is all of the questions. So I will hand back over to you for final goodbye.
Okay. Yeah. So fantastic. So hope you got something out of this evening. If you want to contact us going forward anytime, so I'm Rob Fowler, Senior Student Money Advisor. Email us at smart@derby.ac.uk. Okay. So look forward to seeing you on open day in the future. Good luck with everything. And contact us if you need any help. Thanks a lot.